You've been lied to about power. Most people think they lose in life because they're not strong, disciplined, or talented enough. But the truth is much more simple and far more brutal. Most people lose before the fight even starts because they're stepping onto a battlefield they don't control. Every conflict, at work, in relationships, even in your own head, happens inside a frame. If you don't set that frame, someone else will. And that's how you get manipulated without noticing. They pick the ground, define the meaning, and you bleed yourself dry trying to win on their terms. And yes, this applies to mental health too, because you're constantly being influenced by people and organizations who leverage the unconscious against you professionally. It's $1 billion industry, and this is the missing key. Power is secured through positioning. You have to capture territory before you ever engage. It's like Sun Tzu said, victorious warriors win first, then go to war. Defeated warriors go to war first and then seek to win. Think of it like this. You can be athletic, but still lose a sport if you don't understand the rules of the game. Social dynamics work the same way. If you don't know how the battlefield is shaped, you can't outmaneuver those who do. And that's what positioning for power really means. Setting things up so life bends in your favor before you even make a move. Arranging conditions, perception, and timing so that decisions, conversations, and opportunities tilt towards you without the use of force. So if the human psyche is the battlefield, what kinds of terrain can you actually position yourself on to fight depression, outmaneuver petty coworkers, and crush your life goals? Up first is undefended territory. In war, this is the ground that nobody holds. It's easy to occupy, maybe not the most glamorous or strategic, but often decisive when used well. At work, it looks like important things nobody wants to do. The unclaimed responsibilities that, if you take them on, give you a chance to build trust and prove initiative. Every office has certain tasks that everyone avoids. Since there's no competition over these low-status jobs, you just have to lower yourself enough to pick it up. Doing them consistently without complaining or bragging demonstrates leadership potential. It shows your coworkers you're willing to work hard, and your boss that you can be trusted with bigger responsibilities. You can see this in content with niches and topics that nobody else is covering well. If you claim them, it's much easier to become the authority. In mental health, it shows up as the small, obvious habits that people neglect, like sleep, hydration, and exercise. Nothing exciting enough to be a thumbnail, but important nonetheless. And when you see people who say they're into self-improvement get stuck at this level, it's because they don't understand strategy, so they're forced to rely on tactics. They confuse quick hacks for real insights, so they never move past the surface. The principle is simple. Win where no one is looking. Capture the ground everyone else ignores, and you'll not only build momentum, but also develop the skills and character traits that make you ready for bigger opportunities, so when they come, you're less likely to be crushed by failure. The perfect example of this comes from China's current leader. When Xi Jinping was starting his career, the political battlefield in Beijing was brutal. Every ambitious young man wanted a position in the capital and was willing to do just about anything for status and attention. Instead of joining that fight, Xi made a different move. He went to the countryside and took jobs that were considered beneath him. Low-level posts in poor villages that nobody else wanted. Out there, he had no competition. He worked alongside the people, made small improvements in their daily lives, and built a good reputation amongst the commoners. By the time he returned to Beijing, he wasn't just another rival trying to break through. He had experience, loyalty, and an impressive resume, positioning that gave him the leverage to rise above the crowd. Next is contested territory. This is the ground that both sides want, where the fight is fierce and losses are heavy. At work, it's the competitive promotions everyone is after, where playing politics head-on drains you more than it helps. Online, it's the hyper-saturated niches like fitness, motivation, stuff like that, where you'll bleed energy unless you differentiate yourself, which everyone's trying to do. In mental health, it shows up when you tie your entire identity to specific success metrics, telling yourself you're only valuable if you're a CEO, pro athlete, or if everyone likes you. And I'll be honest, I do this. It's not the healthiest, but it gives me a ton of drive because I am very competitive. I'm not chasing success because I want it, but because I have to. It's who I am. And I'd rather die than give that up because those feel like the same thing to me. And the principle with contested territory is simple. Only fight here if you've already positioned yourself well or if you're bringing real asymmetry. In other words, you either have a tangible competitive advantage or you're absolutely determined to win no matter the cost. Otherwise, you'll waste a ton of energy on fights that don't really matter. So choose your battles wisely. You want to conserve your time, energy, and attention for the opportunities that count, not burn yourself out on situations that don't really need to be engaged with. It's the low-income job that drains your life but never builds anything better. The relationship that constantly drags you down through unnecessary drama. The career path you chased just because it was trendy, only to realize years later you never had a real plan. You can succeed if you work hard and smart enough, but if your heart's not on the fight, you're just not going to have what it takes to beat the people who are willing to dedicate their lives to the craft. Not everything you do will feel fulfilling, of course, and that's fine, but be strategic about how much of yourself you give away to minor skirmishes because the things that really matter are going to demand your best. Next is difficult terrain. And I was stationed in Camp Lejeune, so when I think of bad terrain, I think of swamps, the ground that's slow and exhausting to move through. At work, it's bureaucracy, bad systems, or toxic culture that drains all your energy just to make the smallest progress. Online, it's the platforms with poor discovery, where growth takes a massive amount of effort just to be noticed. And in mental health, it's putting yourself in unwise situations and then acting like surface level tricks are going to solve it. What? Did I hear someone say cold showers? Entry level stuff like positive thinking, visualization, or a decent routine has its place, obviously. But if you don't fix the deeper issues, it's just cosmetic. If you learn to manage anxiety but never change the things making you anxious, what are you doing? You don't sleep, you surround yourself with bad influences, you never plan for financial or personal problems, so you're always in survival mode, and then you try to patch it up with a new breathing technique. Great. Now get your life together and stop being dumb. Yes, you'll have to slog through difficult ground sometimes, especially when you're young and still figuring things out. But if you don't learn from those struggles, you'll stay stuck forever. And what's more, if you look around at the swamp and decide, well, I guess this is just where I'm at, I'll settle down here and become a little swamp creature, well, then those affirmations are going to be about as useful as a Florida meth head mumbling about how he's an immortal ninja. There's probably at least one situation in your life right now that you know you need to fix. You don't need a hack or a goal setting guide. You just need to fix it. Groundbreaking, I know. Next is open territory. In war, open territory is ground that anyone can move across. Equal access, no advantage. At work, it looks like the basic skills everyone has. Sending emails, running meetings, important, but nothing that sets you apart. In content, it's the generic advice like time management tips or be confident mantras. It might help a little, but nobody stands out. And in mental health, it's the generic self care routines or therapy buzzwords that may be useful to a beginner, but no one who's really struggling. As the kids say, it's pretty mid. The lesson here is simple: don't linger, because nothing in open territory distinguishes you. However, also be careful not to let it slip away through negligence. For example, email is not that freaking hard to use. A double click is not complicated. Not answering spam calls is a no brainer. Yet old people refuse to learn this. Helping the allegedly greatest generation do basic everyday tasks that they've been shown hundreds, if not thousands of times, that they refuse to learn because they don't want to, while dealing with their poor social skills, is half the stress of working with the public. I'm sure there's millennials who treat basic AI apps the same way, and y'all are going to get smoked real soon if you don't get it together. So don't fail to keep up with learning as you age. If you do, you'll have no excuse for losing the easiest territory to hold. Number 5 is enclosed territory. Narrow ground means few exits. It's dangerous because once you're trapped there, you don't have many options. At work, it's what happens when you overspecialize in one tool or a career track that doesn't last. Speaking of AI, how much has that already changed things? It's putting people out of work as we speak. But for me, it's only been an advantage because I've never depended on a tool. I've always focused on the fundamental skills that don't expire. That means while other people are panicking because ChatGPT can now automate everything they used to do, I'm having a field day with it. I don't use it randomly or out of laziness for things that I couldn't do myself. Okay, maybe sometimes I'm lazy, but a lot of people are spending time in school or in career specialties with an expiration date and then act confused when life doesn't work out the way they thought it would because lots of things are not the same as they used to be 10 years ago. And people don't recognize that. They keep trying to fight the old wars over and over again and wonder why they remain average, wonder why those strategies don't keep working in the modern setting. In mental health, this shows up when you define yourself by a single identity: the provider, the caretaker, a relationship, one role that holds all your weight. If that collapses, so do you. And the danger gets worse with things you can't control. You can do everything right and still get cheated on. You can be the most valuable employee in the company and still get fired because of someone else's insecurity. Always keep escape routes. Always have options. I'm not saying to have backups in a relationship, obviously. Commitment is commitment. But you do need to choose those bonds wisely because if you don't, you could be walking straight into an ambush. Number 6 is choke points. These are the narrow passes where a few can hold off many. Think Sparta versus the Persians. If you position yourself well, this is where you can start to gain real influence. At work, that can be mastering a bottleneck skill that the whole organization or industry depends on, or doing something customers want better than anyone else. It could be price, speed, quality, efficiency, or relationship. You don't need to be the best at everything, but if you're the best at one of them, you have a serious advantage. Ask yourself, what's something everyone needs that you could realistically get good at? And then do it. For Rockefeller, it was the oil business, but specifically the process of oil refining. In my case, there's a particular reason for people to be interested in psychology that's just not touched on by academics and counselors. Sure, there are plenty of people with better editing skills or professional credentials, but they don't approach things the way I do. I take the principles of war, strategy, espionage, business, filter them through an interest in psychology, and translate that into raw, everyday life skills. I cut the BS and offer you tools you can pick up on your commute and actually use the same day at work, in relationships, and in personal growth in general. I weaponize psychology, not for editorials or motivation, but for people who don't understand the fight that they're in, who don't understand why they can't get ahead and why life is the way it is, but know that they want to win. In a mental health context, choke points, this type of terrain, are the victories that would actually make a real difference. So if loneliness is making you sick and desperation is causing you to be taken advantage of, what would it look like to actually deal with that head on, to embrace it, to overcome it, to not be at its mercy anymore? Could you learn to accept isolation for now, at least, and make the most of it instead of constantly resisting? You might find that not fighting the discomfort frees up a lot of bandwidth that you could be using to figure out how to get into a better situation. And that's a better path than desperately throwing yourself back into the same old coping mechanisms that never work. The point being, own the choke points and you gain leverage. Strategic territory is the ground that controls supply lines and alliances. At work, it's the relationships that unlock opportunities, mentors, gatekeepers, and partnerships that keep your career moving. In relationships, it's having an abundance of what the opposite sex values. People mess this up because they think they know what the other person is looking for, but they don't. Seduction is a battle, and all warfare is based on deception. The goal isn't to chase endlessly, it's to build the kind of value that makes opportunities come to you. And no, this is not that I don't chase, I attract garbage, because that's just narcissistic apathy. What I'm talking about is putting yourself in a position where you actually have something that others want because you've developed yourself into someone of value. When people think of mental health, they obsess over the basics: sleep, diet, exercise, feel good, inspirational quotes, ways to convince myself that my life doesn't suck when I know it does. A strategist looks deeper. The psyche is the territory, but the ground is useless without logistics to sustain it. The real battles are lost when meaning collapses, attention is hijacked, alliances rot, or integrity leaks. Without a flag to fight under and a story to endure for, every setback feels existential. That's what strategic territory is in mental health. True psychological warfare, securing the resources and momentum needed to even begin the war in the first place. Otherwise, you won't be able to sustain yourself in the long run. Perilous territory. This is where you're surrounded, cut off, and trapped. At work, that may be when you're indispensable but hated, when people secretly want you gone, and maybe not so secretly. Sometimes it's unfair, and sometimes people bring it on themselves by being unpleasant. But either way, it's dangerous. This ground always feels personal, which is when egos get bruised and emotions run high. Don't get trapped here, and be careful how you provoke others in those situations, because defensive people with nothing to lose are unpredictable. Another example here might be making content based on controversy. It can get you attention fast, but that can easily become cancellation tomorrow. Unless you're completely dedicated or maybe a little crazy, most people can't handle that kind of heat. And likewise, you don't want to live at war with the world. You really don't. Starting drama and conflict everywhere you go is a waste of time. Oh, but drama follows me. I don't know why. You're why. It's your fault. You're the common denominator. Stop. In mental health, this territory is when you lean on unstable coping mechanisms, things like drugs, alcohol, medication, and relationships. Those things might not be inherently bad, but they're not reliable. In short, avoid perilous ground if you can. If you do find yourself stuck, break out fast. If attempting to crush someone else in this position, be quick and decisive to prevent them from lashing out and turning the tables. Which leads us to number 9, desperate territory, the place where there's no way out except through extreme violence and aggression. People fight hardest when they know there's no help coming, when their back's against the wall. In daily life, that could be your business failing, your career collapsing, or your relationship ending. I've seen how dangerous this can be. I've taken personal attacks from friends who were cornered like this and they lashed out because I accidentally brushed a nerve. If you are that person in that position, you have to be careful with your emotional responses. Desperation makes you paranoid, combative, and quick to snap at your allies. It isolates you and makes you easier to bait into rash decisions by people looking to exploit your weakness. Sometimes it's as simple as losing your temper and sabotaging yourself. Other times it's darker. People who really struggle with issues that they honestly try to overcome and just can't end up so isolated and so desperate for hope that they become easy prey. They ignore obvious red flags, give away their money to charlatans promising to fix all their problems, or fall for ridiculous lies because they can't think clearly. And as annoyed as I get with these people, I do feel bad for them. But if you're there, you have to remember to not lose your head. Yes, desperate territory demands toughness, but brute force is not enough. You have to stay smart, or you'll end up fighting battles that only make your situation worse. For the ambitious, these are your moments of truth. When you're in danger of losing everything or already have, and you're questioning if you even believe in yourself anymore, these are the make or break situations, and how you handle them defines you. Big moments reveal big issues. If you choose to run or give up, you're deciding who you are at the most fundamental level. To quit here is to be a quitter. You have to dig deep, do some soul searching, and decide that you're going to make it one way or another. And that how you make it matters just as much, not by latching on to other people's success or finding shortcuts, but by detaching from the fog of war, creating a plan grounded in reality, then implementing it and adjusting as you go. Desperation breeds action. So channel that into bold, decisive, intelligent moves. And remember, others in this position have nothing to lose, which makes them dangerous. So be deliberate about how you engage with these desperate people, because one wrong move can set off an explosion you didn't see coming. You don't need to be the strongest to be in control. Most people defeat themselves. They overextend, get impatient, or choose the wrong position. Your job is to set conditions where their weaknesses collide with your discipline, their chaos with your composure, their pride with your patience. War rooms, boardrooms, and backrooms, the battlefield, the bar, and the bedroom. The principles are the same. Position yourself well and power follows. Fail and you've already lost. Make sure you guys share this with somebody who you think would enjoy it. Don't forget to subscribe and like, and I will see you soon. Thank you for listening.